Criminal harassment. What is it? What issues are live from a criminal defense attorney's perspective when you're facing or you're being investigated on a harassment charge? And what I can say right out of the gates is if you think you're going to be investigated on a harassment charge, you better tell the officer, I like to talk to a lawyer before I talk to you, right out of the gates, because these are super fact specific, and if an officer has the slightest bit of bias in these kinds of situations, they will charge you, and then you're in the uphill battle of having to prove that the victim is not a victim.
Exactly. And the problem you've also got with criminal harassment charges are what one person may deem to be harassment, another would be like, oh, he always says that. You can't take that seriously. And I was somebody who, when I was in high school and junior high, would say, I'm going to kill you. But anybody who knew me was like, oh yeah, sure you will. You're too lazy.
You still do that.
Well, it doesn't matter, but the bottom line is some people who didn't know would be like, oh, I'm so afraid. Everyone else is like, he's not going to touch you.
You'd never physically harm anybody.
No, why would you? Get yourself into trouble.
But a third party may take that, because it's not only a threat, but then by words or conduct, they have to believe that you're going to follow through on that. Mm-hmm. And in some circumstances, especially on the internet now, where you can type things out, you can send a text, you can send it by Facebook, it's taken out of context, and it's also happens to be in a format that the police it's very easy for them to get a copy of, and then subsequently put it in a file as part of your criminal case.
And that's another huge issue. With the advance of technology, especially over the last 4 to 5 years, Facebook, MySpace, texting, all this stuff are things that police can go online and boom, they just do a screenshot, save it, pop it into a file. You can go and try and erase it, but once it's out there, oh, it's there. It may not be on your computer, it may not be on somebody else's computer, but if the police have found it, it doesn't matter. It's coming into evidence, and so you've got to be incredibly careful.
And it's interesting enough now in 2014, even 5-10 years ago, the ease in which, let's say, a Seattle Police Department police officer can investigate a case, get a copy of a Facebook account, trace the IP address back to a home address, and then go do the investigation of it. Mm-hmm. Personally, I was seeing those kinds of cases happen on sex offenses. I was seeing them on high-level felonies. I was not seeing that commonly being done on lower-level crimes. I don't think that police departments knew how to do it, and it was fresh. It was new data. Of late, absolutely.
They can do it on anything, and that's the problem with these, is that harassment is one of those charges that, depending upon the level of the threats, that's what the problem is, because it's not just a matter of it being a Class A felony. It can be a Class B felony, a Class C felony. It can be a gross misdemeanor. It could be a misdemeanor. It may be something you could get an SOC on. Who knows? It all depends on what was said, how urgently you threaten the individual that you're going to carry out the threats, that sort of thing.
And the other problem I think with harassment is even if you don't open a criminal door on it, it bloody well opens up a civil protection order, which is a lower standard of proof, and potentially someone's going to be able to prevent you from coming within 500 feet of them, coming within their residence, having no contact. If you guys go to the same school, somebody who's going to a different school.
In a school situation.
And so, harassment, really, from a criminal defense perspective, it's going to come one of three ways. It's going to be because the other person's lying, or you were falsely accused, you overstepped, or the prosecutor or the law overstepped. And you're going to fit in one of those three categories. If you are in an investigation stage of an harassment charge, you got to tell the lawyer, you got to tell the police officer, I don't want to give my side of the story until I talk to a lawyer, because you have to be vetted on what happened, because these are super fact specific, super fact sensitive, and you don't want your language taken out of context.
And you want to make sure that whatever you say, your attorney's already gone over it with you so they can come in and back you up. Police don't mind having attorneys there for interviews. What they do mind is you just saying, I'm not going to talk.
Yeah. And
call us if you get in a situation where you're being investigated for harassment, because these cases can cause a lot of trouble.
Or you think you're going to. You send something online and you shouldn't have, or you engage in a process you shouldn't have, or you said something you shouldn't have. You need to backpedal furiously in today's day and era, because they are taking these crimes serious. They don't know the difference between an harassment claim that doesn't really have any meaning. I say that all the time, kind of thing. And frankly, in today's day and era, what you were saying back when you were growing up, you'd be arrested.
I'd be arrested. I'd be in jail.
And so
I wouldn't be a lawyer, and that would be really ugly.
Yeah, so you have to be you have to be very careful, not to make light of the circumstances, but in today's day and era, there just isn't any humor or common sense doesn't apply. The community doesn't know people the way perhaps they did 50 years ago.
The community doesn't want to know people, so
that's arguable too.
Call us.
Call someone.
Call us.